Hi, Erica's class. My name is Ian Douglas Terry. I'm a professional comedian and entertainer, and I deal with a lot of gender issues in my stand-up comedy. It's all about the ladies.
Nah, baby. My dick did.
No. I'd like to call what I do vagina bothering.
You just got goofed.
But you did have cats. And that's a red flag, baby. Women who live alone and have cats that they treat like human babies are like men who live alone and have torture pits in their basement.
What is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie of all time is a movie called Annie Hall starring Woody Allen. It's a beautiful tale.
Describe this tale.
Describe it? It's about people falling in love and how love is awesome and then simultaneously miserable. And it shows like the direct arc, kind of in reverse of falling in love and falling out of love. It's all about a young Woody Allen man falling in love with women. It's beautiful.
Is it very stereotypical of man loves woman story? Woman falls for man?
Not really. It's not stereotypical because it's not like the most romantic comedies where it's like man meets a woman and they don't like each other, but then at the end of the movie they fall in love. Like there's like a million movies like that. Like all the romantic comedies, it's like, oh, Josh Duhamel and Amy, what's her name? They're never gonna fall in love, but then they do. But this is more like they fall in love, then they hate each other and fall out of love. And so it's like real, because that's what really happens in gender loving relationships between genders. I don't know.
To be fair, you're not as bad as the girlfriend I had who cheated on me every time a holiday would happen. I got her a nice sweater for Christmas. She got me someone else's penis inside of her. There is no gift receipt for that.
Movies that I would say characterize masculinity would be the Rambo series, because it's a man with his shirt off being extremely masculine, fighting for freedom. And there's usually romance somehow involved, like he's out in the jungle shooting people, but there's always some lady that he can fall in love with somehow, which is kind of weird, but that's a very masculine thing. The movie Slapshot, which is a movie from the 70s about hockey, starring Paul Newman, one of the most masculine human beings ever. It's all about hockey. It's like a crazy comedy, but it's very manly and men drinking and smoking and playing hockey and being jerks. It's very masculine characteristics, mostly the being jerks part.
An open love letter to my girlfriend who can't stop fucking other dudes. By me. Yeah, she's gross, huh?
A really good example of a movie that takes both feminine and masculine and addresses those issues is a movie called Tootsie, starring Dustin Hoffman. And it's a comedy, but it like addresses those like gender and social issues in where he's a man and he wants to get a basically a better job, but they'll only give that job to a woman. So he dresses up like a woman and pretends to be a woman to get this better job, and so it addresses like, which that doesn't make sense now because you think that men have better jobs according to social norms, but it's a comedy, but at the same time it's all about like women and men and how they're different and the same and like within working environments and social environments. It's very interesting.
Would you say this movie was portraying that if a woman looks a certain way, then she's more likely to get a job?
Not really, because he made a very ugly woman. he was not definitely a sexy like bombshell blonde, but it was basically just boiled down to, instead of just looks, it was just that he was a woman.
Homosexual men dress well, are tremendous dancers, and are very sassy and cultured. I am none of these things, though I'm often confused as being a gay man. That's a word.
Okay. What movie reminds you of sexuality in film?
Like the obvious ones are like Brokeback Mountain and Boys Don't Cry, because they address homosexuality where it's not stereotypical and it's not portrayed as like something that's funny. and to be like laughed at, even though there's nothing wrong with that, but it's addressed it as like serious issues. But probably my favorite thing that portrayal of sexuality in film this year was a movie called Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and the main story was about a guy fighting a girl's evil ex-boyfriends, but there was a side character played by Kieran Culkin, and he was Scott Pilgrim, Michael Cera's gay roommate, and just the way the character was portrayed went against the stereotype of a homosexual male character, where it wasn't like a caricature. I said that right. Or like seeing like someone like, what do you think of a gay person? How are they gonna be? And like, this is how it is, and which is just kind of an easy way to do it. But it was just a very funny, like wry and like witty character who was he slept with dudes. He was wild and crazy and loved dudes, but it was like more along the lines of not playing along with the normal stereotype that homosexuals have in movies, which is a lot like Brokeback and Boys Don't Cry. And I like that. I don't want to be like, here's the homosexual character. He's wearing pink, he has feathers, and he has a crazy lisp. It's more, I think it needs to be more addressed where homosexuals they're not all the same stereotype. They're, people of all different types of weird stereotypes, if that makes sense.
Is this still applicable to stand-up comedy?
No! All right, so everyone knows the last 3 people I had sex with. If anyone would like to sign up, there's a sign-up sheet over.
What about typical women movies? Women role movies.
Typical. If I were to pick movies that represented a more feminine
How women
side.
are supposed to be portrayed. Stereotypical women movie.
Oh, Breakfast at Tiffany's, hands down.
Oh.
It's basically about a woman who just loves shopping and loves like men buying her things, and it's just like loving clothes, and that's women, like that's the stereotype. But I think there's movies that I like Breakfast at Tiffany's. I don't hate it. Audrey Hepburn was a babe, but
Then you started to move your face towards it. Now let's talk about deal breakers. That shit really happened. Like, imagine me going, oh no! Like, oh my god.
well, I think what I would like is more movies that are, especially like when it comes to gender interaction and love and relationships, that more movies like Annie Hall and like 500 Days of Summer, where it's not a happy ending, because happy endings are very rare in relationships between genders or between the same genders. Like, everybody knows that. Everybody, like, love is awful. It's a terrible thing. It's an amazing thing. It's really fun and great, but then it's the worst thing. And I like movies like that, where it's realistic. And not like boy meets girl, they fall in love, end of story. Or boy meets boy, girl meets girl, dog meets dog, and then they go to heaven.
An open letter to every girl who has ever rejected me. No, it's not sad, it's good. It's uplifting, like the movie Rudy. Dear girls, some of you got fatter, some of you got uglier, but you're all older. I am too, but besides sleeping with younger and hotter girls, this is what I do now. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim Kasher. Everyone buy his new solo album when it comes out. It's a delight.
I don't think this cat believes in anything. I think you have no soul. I think when you die, you're not going anywhere. There's no all cats go to heaven.